Hey, welcome to the James Show, News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. There's a big election coming up in 2 days. And I don't say big as in we're picking the president, or we're going to be picking our senators, or we're going to be picking the big, flashy headline things. It's a big election for two reasons. Number one, so few people are voting that more so than any other election you participate in, your vote counts. I mean, it counts for something in this one. And it's also big in the fact that these are things that aren't happening in Baltimore or North Dakota. These are all things that are happening in your backyard. And also, this is an unusually slow election season thus far. I had the report here from our news partner, WFAA.
Voting is underway for the May 4th election. Here's a look at how many or how few people showed up on the first day, especially when you consider there are some big money items on some of these ballots here. Tarrant County had the most in North Texas, with just over 4,500 people showing up on day one, 3,500 people voting in Dallas County, where there's a mammoth bond issue. More than 3,000 voted in Denton, and just over 1,800 people cast their votes.
So let's talk about what's actually going to be on the ballot here. Now, I cannot go through everyone's ballot bit by bit, but let me give you just some general ideas of what I've seen. And I'm going to isolate Dallas because it affects the most people, but the same intuition and the same advice and really the same criticism that I have for these bond proposals in Dallas, they resonate through the bond proposals you're going to be voting on in Fort Worth, and the ones you're going to be voting on in McKinney, and the ones you're going to be voting on in Collin County at large. And Denton has a bunch of them, and there's a bunch of schools that have them. And I don't want to be too reductive, because I don't want you to dismiss me and be like, yeah, he's doing that dumb libertarian thing where he's against everything. Well, no, I'm not against everything, but I am severely skeptical of every bond package, because the bond package are often sold to the public as, well, we need to have this passed or we're not going to have a new gymnasium. And then what are the kids going to do? No, you can still get a new gymnasium. You would just have to do it within the parameters of the budget you already have. You don't have to take out new debt. And it's also, they're always presented to you like it's in a vacuum. The bond packages that we have for Dallas, $1.25 billion in bond packages. Well, $1.25 billion in debt, sounds like a lot, but when you divide it out through the taxpayers, yeah, but that's on top of the bond packages you passed 2 years ago and 2 years before that and a year before that. And these things add up to where we have way too much debt, and we have way too much of your local budgets that are going to service these previous bond packages. And we never get the review. We never get the review back on, hey, remember when we told you we were going to spend $640 million of taxpayer money to build Cowboy Stadium, and this is all the revenue we would get out of it? Where's the report showing what a raging success it is and how all the people of Arlington have already made their money back and plus some? These are all bad ideas in hindsight from my observation. Now, I'm not going to be completely shut down and say that means every bond package is bad and there's never a need for a bond package. I understand, especially when some of these exurb school districts have explosive growth, that they're going to necessarily have to take on some debt to get out in front of their rising population until the tax revenues can come in. But that's not what we're talking about in Dallas. Dallas is pretty well landlocked and has been so for a long time, so it's not like we're taking on new areas or whatever. So let me just break down some of this for Dallas, because listen, Louisville has this. Rowlett is going to have bond elections. Farmers Branch, Irving, Melissa, Anna ISD, Farmersville ISD has a huge one. McKinney, I mean, all of these, this all applies to you. So I'm talking about Dallas, but I'm talking about you too. So voters are going to be asked to weigh on the following proposition allocations: $521 million for streets and transportation. Now, this doesn't mean if we vote this down, then there's not going to be any money for streets and transportation. That means the streets and transportation spending is going to have to live within the budgets of what's already being taken in and budgeted by the Dallas city government. And it's a few bucks. It's not like it's $5. For fiscal year 2021, $3.81 billion was the operating budget. If you can't service the streets and transportation with that much money, then we have another problem. Anyway, $345 million for parks and recreation, $52 million for food protection and storm drainage, $35 million for libraries. Ooh, $35 million on top of what we're already spending for libraries? Yes. And then they go through and they list all these things that sound nice. And there's a lot of things that sound nice. And some of these programs have nice benefits to the community. I'm not sure if it justifies the cost. And I'm damn sure it doesn't justify taking on a new bond so we can have an extra $75 million for cultural arts facilities on top of what we're already doing. But they do some sneaky things here. I actually did the nerdy thing where I downloaded the Excel spreadsheet and I went through the sucker line by line and I found some trash in here. So let's go all the way down to line 24. We have $29,200,000 set aside for economic development is the category. What's the project? It's called a future project. Oh. What's the description? Funding designated for projects in alignment with the economic incentive policy. So we don't know what we're going to spend this on yet. You know, if it's going to be for a theater or a park or a new sewage main or a new airstrip for an airport. We don't know what it is. We don't even know how much it's going to cost, but we're going to set aside $29.2 million. So we don't even, you don't even have a project for it. You're just having a slush fund. We have to take on debt so you can have this. It'd be one thing if we had $29.2 million left over out of our $3.81 million budget and we set that aside. Well, we'll find something in the future to do economic development with that extra money. But no, we don't have extra money. In fact, we're in debt. In fact, we overspent what our revenues were last year. So we're going to take on new debt for a project we don't even know what it is. We just know it's going to cost $29 million. We're only putting $26 million out for housing, $90 million for public safety, $29 million for this. Doesn't stop there. Next line, line 25, another future project. Economic development is the excuse again. This one's for housing. Funding designated for projects in support of housing, not for the projects or a specific housing project, just the ethereal concept of projects. How much is this one? $36.6 million. So let's do some quick math here. All of a sudden we have, what is this? $65 million of this is just a slush fund that we don't even know what it's for. We don't even know what we're going to spend it on, but we know we need it and we know we need it so bad. We're going to have to take debt on that you're going to have to pay interest on for the rest of your life and your children's lives probably to get this thing paid off. No, there's no such thing as a valid excuse to take on debt for a project that you don't even know exists yet. You can't make that argument. You can make the argument that, James, this school district, we had 1,000 students 5 years ago. Now we have 2,000 students, and we haven't been able to double the size of our classrooms. We need to take on a bond so we can do that. There's like a concrete need, and then a solution, and then like a finite set of plans where the building's going to cost X amount of dollars. But this is just like, well, we don't know what this is for, but we're going to go ahead and set aside $36 million extra dollars for some project. I don't know. It's going to be housing related. And then another one, economic development related. That could be anything. And what did we check on what happened when they did this with the previous bond issues? Did this money go to good causes? Did this ever get audited? Do we even know? Does anyone check up on it? Does anyone care? Or is this $65,000 that just gets set aside with no rules on it? And if it goes missing, it goes missing. No one's checking up on it anyway. No one's going to miss a check. And that's what we're taking out debt for. I'm against all of these. Every single one that is in the Dallas list. I went through all of them. Vote against all of them. James, it can't be that simple. Well, until they come up with better bond proposals, if there's something that's really seriously needed, they need to separate it out from all this other garbage. Because we don't need to take on $1.2 billion in debt for trash projects that we don't need, that we don't even know what some of these are. Clearly corruption, clearly slush funds, clearly abuse of your dollars. And that's what you're voting on Saturday. So go knock it down, or I don't even know you. What do you think about that? 800-288-WBAP, 800-288-9227. Does anyone think they can convince me that we need to take on these bond packages? Because they look terrible. This is The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. Hey there, welcome to The James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3. In 2 days, you're going to go to the ballot box and you're going to have your opinions heard. You're going to vote. And most of us have some sort of bond proposals on our ballot. And just generally speaking, I know this doesn't apply to all of them, but all the ones that I reviewed that are going to be on the Dallas ballot, every single one of them, I strongly encourage you to vote against. No exceptions. Someone try and talk me out of it. Do I sound too extreme? 800-288-9227. Let's start with Stephen in Dallas. You're on The James Show. What do you think, Stephen?
James, I will tell you, for city and other, possibly you're correct. Schools, you are totally off base and so wrong that you obviously you don't understand school funding. There is not money to build new schools, period. There's not. They don't give you a slush fund, as you called it, to build new schools. There is no pirated money out there. If you look at bond proposals, the state legislator forces school districts to list exactly what that bond is being paid for. They can't deviate from that. There is no, we're going to build a gymnasium if we're building a new school. If we say we're going to the community to build a new school, we must build a new school with that money. Can't be used for anything else. Unfortunately, it does not apply, and it irritates me when the talk show hosts get on there and say, I'm a libertarian, I'm a Republican, I'm a Democrat, whatever. School business does not have a policy or a political party affiliation. And unfortunately, we don't have that money, period. There is no money for that. And this morning, Governor Abbott got on WBAP and said, we gave more money to schools. That money has not hit the school districts yet. There is no finite number of money to get out there.
Okay, I specifically had a caveat for schools that get above their skis and they run out of space and they have no other way to build buildings. However, that doesn't make all school bonds good. That doesn't mean that you should go out and vote for them because a school proposes them. I think most of the school bonds I see, because I've had to read a few of them because I'm voting on these things, and it means a lot more when you're from a small town too. That I don't know if we need like a $4 million scoreboard on the new football stadium, and I don't know if we need the new football stadium to be that big and opulent, and I don't know, there's still other problems you can have with the school bond and not be against all school bonds, period, point blank, end of story. And if I came across too far, I apologize, but
the other host, you and the other host on WBAP are so against public education.
Yes.
That it's super frustrating when you don't understand the politics of school districts. There is no money. Everybody thinks there's some grand scheme of everybody in school districts are against public ed or whatever. I don't know what you think.
I don't think anyone thinks that they're
against public ed.
You're doing some straw man stuff here. I don't think anyone thinks that there's a giant slush fund of money and they don't need any help ever. On this station or anywhere in America, I don't think anyone's made that. Absolutely, I am against public education, just generally speaking. I'm not saying everyone that works at a public school is bad or public schools are all just inherently bad, but generally speaking, I think that is a less efficient way to allocate our scarce education resources is through a government program. I think the private sector runs circles around it in education, just like it does in most other industries.
Really?
Yes.
So you have gone to and talked to the folks from charter schools, privately funded, and you think they're better?
Well, I can do one better. My kids went to a charter school in New Orleans for like 4 years. Yeah, I know.
Oh, so you're from New Orleans?
No, I'm from here.
You said you lived in Bug Tussle.
Yes, I was born and raised in Bug Tussle. My grandmother was a teacher. My sister's a teacher. Two of my aunts right now are teachers. I'm surrounded by teachers. My wife was a teacher at a private school for about 2 years in her career cycle. So, yeah, I mean, I'm not just some guy who went to like a Mises.org YouTube video and think I know everything about schools. I mean, there's some studying going on here. It's not that I don't understand it. You and I see what's going on in the real world. We came to different conclusions.
Well, no, I'm a board member at a school district, and it's very frustrating when people like you get on here and say there's slush funds or all these other things, and bonds
Never said it. Never said that.
Actually, line item 24 and 25.
Okay, yeah. So line item 24 and 25 were in the we're in the Dallas bond proposal. They didn't have anything to do with schools.
You never said.
No, I said one was for economic they were both under economic development. One was for economic incentive policies. The other one was for housing in support of housing projects. I was pretty crystal clear on that.
ISD or the city of Dallas?
This was the city of Dallas.
Okay, because you never made that clarification if it was the city of Dallas or Dallas ISD.
Well, I don't think Dallas ISD has any public housing projects under their jurisdiction. So I thought,
I would hope not.
Okay, so I think everyone got that, but you. I think you're a little sensitive to this because you hear the steps coming behind you because we're not happy with the way our public schools have turned out, and you think that's a personal criticism of you. I'm sure you're very good. You're
not at all.
You're calling it.
Not at all. I am not.
Stephen, you're acting like we are personally insulting you. It is okay for you to be someone who works in the public school system to be able to admit that public schools do not do as good or efficient of a job as allocating scarce educational resources as private schools or charter schools or other options or homeschooling. You're out there because you're invested in this. This is your job. This is your industry. And the attack on public schools is an attack on what? Your career, your livelihood. And I can understand if I was on the board of some school district and people were griping about how public schools have failed, I might take a little personal offense to that. I might have a natural inclination to sort of knee-jerk reject that too. But the point still stands. It's a principled point that, generally speaking, I am against public schools. That doesn't mean I think you're a bad guy. That doesn't mean I think all school bonds are bad. But all the bonds I'm reading here for Dallas, different story, they're all bad. Some school bonds are bad. Some public schools are bad. Some public schools are good. You can't just reduct it all down and then just throw it out, the baby with the bathwater, because it sounds like you just, line three, that sounds like you got a little butt hurt there. I don't mean to be mean, but that's just what I heard. Steve in Carrollton, you're on 820 AM now, 93.3 FM WBAP.
Good afternoon, and it sounds like you're taking a bunch of Steves, and it's going to turn this into a Steve show instead of your name.
Well, I like the Steve so far.
I thought the last guy's name was Steven.
It is. No, I liked him. I like it when people disagree. It's more fun.
Well, I'm on the like a lot of people, I'm on the inside of this thing. I've got kids in public school, and I'll tell you that from what we've seen here in the Louisville ISD, that's where Carrollton falls. The district is so top heavy. As a matter of fact, currently our district is several $1 million in the red, say it that way. They've got bonds on the list right now. We just passed a bond last cycle for a couple $1 billion. This cycle is another couple billion. Next cycle is going to be another couple billion. They just keep begging for more and more money, but they never, and I'm at school board meetings all the time, but they never look at, you know what, we really should consider cutting costs. We do have a lot of money coming. As a matter of fact, example of one of many places where they could cut immediately is at the middle school level. The school principal has a personal secretary. Now, when I was in middle school principal didn't have a personal secretary. There were ladies in the office, but there were no personal secretaries for the principal. It's like, well, why are we paying for middle school principals to have personal secretaries? And there's more and more. Another thing in this bond that they're trying to put out now, that they've put out now, that we're voting on Saturday on election day, is for the raggedy grounds on the football field. So we need so many billions of dollars because we need to fix the pavement. I mean, and it goes on and on and on, and never do they figure, well, you know what? I bet we could fix the vast majority of this if we simply cut the bloat. And I'll tell you from the experience I've had with these guys, not just in Louisville ISD, but around the Metroplex, actually. I'm a political activist, so I see a lot of the stuff in a lot of the districts. They are all the same. And your gut feeling of saying that, bonds are usually garbage. Well, in fact, they are usually garbage. It's not just some of the time. It's the vast majority of the time. They are complete and utter garbage. And, and you're right, when they start naming our money that they want and don't give specifics, you better believe it's going to go to something that you are not going to like. Otherwise, they would say it plainly, and you'd be happy to support it. Because they know they've got parents that are wrapped around their fingers. They'd be happy to support most things. But if you won't even tell it to the public what it is you're planning on doing with it, yeah, it probably shouldn't be there.
All right. Well, now you're my favorite, Steve, because you agreed with me. So that does help. I take it back. All right. Thank you very much, Steve in Carrollton. It's the James Show. News Talk 820 WBAP, now on FM at 93.3.